I'm Jay.
I'm Adrian.
And together we are the
Two Crazy Cat Ladies.
I'm gonna cut you.
I think I just peed.
Buckle up.
We're back in the closet.
Welcome to another episode of Back in the Closet with the Two Crazy Cat Ladies. Guys, we are so excited today to be joined by one of our favorite humans on the planet, one of the biggest game changers in pet health, and the owner of a boarding facility.
Don't make that face, young man.
Sorry.
It's not a boarding facility. This is
Right.
an exclusively holistic pet retreat and grooming salon.
That is true.
And
Yes.
you are the owner and a pet life coach. You are exactly what Jay said, a game changer. You're moving the needle every day, and every pet parent's life that comes in contact with you you are the creator of the Thriving Pet Expo.
Yes.
That is just an extraordinary, mind-blowing event that really does move the needle. So
Carrie Hyde.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, everybody. You guys are amazing. I thank you for having me and trusting me with your cat people. I'm just so happy to be here. It's just been amazing. Thank you. That was an amazing introduction.
We didn't even rehearse it.
Yeah,
but you're an amazing human. Yes.
I think this topic is one I'm so excited about.
Because the holidays are coming up, right?
Right.
So it is like the holiday season is upon us, and we're going to be talking about boarding cats today. And that's something that we personally have never done, but we have heard both good and bad stories around boarding cats, mostly on the more negative side. And other than your facility, which we were introduced
hotel.
to, the cat hotel that you have, which we got to see recently on a live video. We got to watch those. We watched it when those little black kittens were there. Do you remember? They were so cute.
One of those little black kittens is now like, they grow so fast, these cats, right? They go from this to like full grown. And
right.
Boo, one of those kittens that was on that was actually in today.
Really?
Yeah. So every once in a while I go live so people can see what's going on. So yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it so much. So today we're going to talk about, Carrie is going to inform us all on the do's and don'ts, on the good and bad.
What to look for, how to choose.
Boarding cats. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's just an overwhelming thing. You know, for us, we've always, hired a pet sitter to come to the house and take care of our babies. And it's not possible for a lot of people, especially if they don't want someone in their home, or if that's, so I get where a boarding facility seems like a good option. What do you look for when that's what you've got to do?
So I will first say, and I am the first one to say this, the best place for your cat to be is your home. There is no doubt about it. The best place for your cat to be is your home. I am not here to plug people bringing their cats to me. It is the best place. However, there are situations where it isn't. One of those would be, we deal like a lot with diabetic cats that have to have their insulin, which we could talk about that. It's a whole different thing. We're not talking about nutrition today, so I'm going to try to not get us off track. But if you have an animal who has diabetes or needs certain medications, or they're just kind of more mischievous, and you're worried that if you left them home for too long, they could get into cupboards. And I know there's all sorts of reasons why you may need a boarding facility.
Wow.
But without a doubt, especially cats. I always say that cats, and this is weird, so let me define it. I always say that cats are the introverted of people and dogs are the extroverted. That doesn't mean that cats aren't social. It just means that it takes them longer. So like you could bring a dog into a boarding facility and within 30 seconds, he's like, and everybody's his best friend. But a cat takes a lot longer to warm up. And so they're very stressed for the first day or two of boarding. And some cats won't even come out of that stress for the entire stint of this day. So that's why I always say at home is best, so long as you have the right people that are there and checking on them and keeping an eye on them. But boarding facilities, definitely, there's questions to ask and know. There's some great boarding facilities out there, though. So I don't want to say that like mine is the best, but there are some things to check and know. And for me personally, because of how stressed a cat is when you take them out of their own environment and put them into a new environment, the number one absolute no-no for me is when dogs are combined with cats.
Wow.
Because the barking, so a lot of boarding facilities will board both dogs and then they say, oh, well, the cats are on the other side of the wall, which is great. But if they can still hear the barking or they can smell the dog, I just think you're just adding that stress level to the cat. So
Yeah.
That's my number one. It should be cats only. So
yeah, I love that. So how do you do that at your facility as far as separating the two? Because I have to say, I've watched your live videos. I haven't been. We were just there. I don't know why we didn't go.
I thought about asking you guys, but it was so busy with the Thriving Pet Expo. We had so much going on, but I was like, I should have the cat ladies come over and see. My buildings are two totally different buildings.
Oh, wow.
They're totally different buildings. There is no, they are across the parking lot from each other. So I can be at kind of both locations at the same time,
Right.
but there's a parking lot in between. And then even inside the building, we built a room inside a room so we could insulate it, and it's very quiet.
Wow.
But they're two separate buildings. So that's, to me, number one. And that comes back from my vet tech days. So back when I was a vet tech, we had the cats were all boarding in the animal hospital, and then the dogs were there, and it was just chaos. You could always hear the dogs barking. They could always smell the dogs. There was just so much going on. And it's really, really hard to keep a cat from being stressed. It just is. And they don't show stress the same way that dogs do. So a lot of times people think they're not stressed because they're just sitting there, because they're not, diarrhea all over the place. They're not barking. They're not doing anything. So people just think, oh, they're fine. They're not fine.
No.
A lot of times they're stressed. So you have to really kind of understand what stress looks like in a cat, because it's very different than in a dog.
What are some of the things that you look for that help you and your team be considerate of the cats that come in? Some cats, even in our own family, some cats are far more social. Our Panthers are social butterflies.
Yeah.
And then we've got other cats that you don't even know they exist.
You came to the house. You didn't see cats, right?
Yeah. No, there's cats that are very social. One recommendation I give people who travel a lot and they know they're not going to be able to have a house sitter come to the house, start your cats off as soon as possible with getting used to getting in the car, going to this, so that it becomes two homes instead of one. And even if that requires you taking them very young as kittens, like the kittens that you guys saw, those kittens were running around. It just is now their second home. So it's not a boarding facility. So if you don't travel that much, it's probably not a big deal. But if you know you're going to be traveling a lot, start them off young, get them used to it so that they can, don't wait till your first trip out and go, oh, here you are, kitty, at 5 years old. Right. So start them out as young as you possibly can. One of the biggest things I tell people, the kennel that you transport your cat into the boarding facility, this is why I say people have no idea the stuff that matters. A lot of times people put their cat into a cat carrier, right? Regular cat carrier, like the ones that open kind of from the side where you got to reach in and grab the cat. Mm-hmm. That alone can change everything for your cat, because trying to pull a cat out of one of those carriers, what happens? They put the brakes on. You're trying to get them. They can hurt themselves. So number one, transport your cat in a carrier that opens from the top. It's much easier to pull them out. They're not as stressed trying to hold on to everything so they don't get out. Yeah. Plus, I don't like getting scratched.
Yeah. No, well, this is good advice for vet visits too.
Vet visits too. Yeah. I mean, reaching into those cat carriers, we can't see them. We're trying to yank them out. Somebody holds the end. That whole transition is so much stress. And if you just put them even in those cheap little boxes that you just pop open the top and then carry them out right off the bat, that is your first number one thing, is how are we going to get this cat from the box into his facility?
Let me ask you, do you ever, or does anyone ever, or would you recommend that they do if they even have never? This is going to make sense in a second. Encourage people to bring their cats to the facility before they actually bring them to drop them off. So to like kind of get used to any smells or to meet you or anything like that, like for the first time. Has anybody ever done that, or would it be helpful?
I don't think it's helpful. And the reason why is because cats can smell better than dogs can. I don't know if you guys know that, being mostly cat oriented, but cats have a better sense of smell. So if you bring me your cat on Tuesday and then you bring him back on Friday, the smells are different. There's different cats there. There's going to be different smells. So mostly it's kind of, they get the look of things, but it's not enough time if they're just coming in for a couple hours. It's just, I think it's unnecessary stress. The car ride over, the car ride back, to stay for a couple hours. And then on Thursday, like I said, there may be another cat in there that they're like, wait, what's that? Right. So it changes with the coming and going. So I don't think it's worth it for the cat to do that, put them through that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
But you know, the other thing that people say to me a lot is, can I bring my own shirt or my clothing or something so that my cat smells me? That's a no-no.
Really?
Guess what the kitty's doing when he can smell you?
Peeing on it?
Looking for you.
Oh.
Looking for you.
I would think it would be soothing for them to have that.
They can't find you. Where are you? I can smell you. You're here. Where are you? So it can cause actually more stress. Yeah. I've actually had people bring their clothing, or actually had a woman, don't do this, by the way. Don't bring me your bathrobe that's used. Like, I'm sorry. That happened one time. I was like, really? Like, yeah.
I don't have a bathrobe.
Yeah, I don't want your dirty bathrobe. But I have seen cats where they bring like their shirt and they lay the shirt in the kennel, and guess where the cat doesn't lay? They leave the kennel. And I'm like, are they like, that's the only, I'm like, why aren't you laying on the thing that they brought you that is the most? So we always leave our kennels in the room with our cats. That is for the reason of a fire, an emergency. It's so hard to get cats into kennels. I'm not going to go looking for a kennel and whatever. Right. I don't want to stress people out, but that's why we leave the kennels. We also leave the kennels in there in case they feel more comfortable in something from home. But 9 times out of 10, the cat leaves the area where their shirt is and goes and lays on a different shelf. So I can't guarantee it, but I can tell you, I have seen cats. It feels like they're more stressed having that smell there. Like, where's my mom? Where's my dad? What's going on?
Wow.
So,
I would have
I
never
don't recommend it. I've certainly have never seen where they're like, oh, good, this smells like home. This is great. I've never seen that. So I don't think it helps, and I think it can hurt. So I never recommend people bringing their clothes from home.
That's so interesting. See, I knew we'd learn a lot of new stuff from you, because we always do.
Yeah. Well, they're smelling. Their sense of smell is, you've seen it. Their little whiskers are going, like everything's kind of crazy. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So we don't do that. No dog barking anywhere. Super important. Kennels, so that we're not pulling them out and causing trauma from get-go. Super important. Not vaccinating. Now, every kennel is going to be different. So most kennels are going to require a ton of vaccines on your animals. There's different laws in different states, so I can't speak to what every state requires, but my high recommendation is whatever you're going to do for your cat or what the kennel requires, I would wait at least 2 weeks before you bring a cat into a boarding facility that's been vaccinated. Don't do it. I get people all the time who want to do it same day. Like, oh, I'll take him to the vet on Monday morning and then I'll bring him here. And you don't want to do that. So I'm not really here to tell people what vaccines to get and not get. I'm a holistic place, so I don't require a lot of the vaccines. But whatever ones people choose, please give your cats a 2-week resting period with those vaccines so that the stress isn't going to make them sicker from getting it.
I was going to say, is that to be able to check and make sure that they don't have any vaccine reactions before?
It's for a couple of reasons. They can have a vaccine reaction, and sometimes they can have the reaction because of the stress. So you vaccinate, everything seems fine and probably would be fine if you went home, but instead you dropped them off at a boarding facility where they're stressed and now they have the reaction. The other reason, and I personally think if you're taking a cat to a facility that doesn't have a 2-week waiting period, you're creating a risk for your animals anyway, because some vaccines are shedding vaccines. So if your cat boarding next door to you in the room next door just got vaccinated for something like, I don't know, leukemia or something. Actually, leukemia wouldn't spread through the air, but there's certain ones that do. and then he comes in and he's just breathing, and your cat is next door, and maybe he's immune compromised because he's old or he has diabetes or whatever, or he's got kidney failure, whatever that is. He's going to be now exposed to this recently vaccinated cat because it's airborne. So we see it a lot in kennels, like in dog kennels with kennel cough. Like dogs are getting recently vaccinated for kennel cough, and the kennel can't figure out why they keep getting cases of kennel cough. It's because vaccines can shed. So you want to check with your boarding facilities. Most of them will require these vaccines, but they should have a 2-week waiting period. It keeps the environment clean. So check with your boarding facilities, make sure they're doing their job to make sure that these airborne things are not going through. Air purifiers are very important. So you want to have those there with a HEPA filter to make sure that the air quality is, because they're going to breathe the same air. There's no way we can stop that from happening. Right. Make sure that the place is fully air conditioned. You'd be surprised how many lobbies are air conditioned, but the actual cat boarding area is not. So you need to ask, is it air? I know. I can see your face, but I've seen that happen more times than not, where the actual area, because a lot of these places, like maybe like my place, for example, is part warehouse and part office. So the offices were air conditioned, but I had to put it in for the warehouse. I had to build it out and make it have air conditioning in the back for the cats. So a lot of places will do that where only part of the place is air conditioned. So you got to ask those questions.
Well, and I was beyond asking those questions. Would most places allow you to kind of tour the facility to kind of see where your cat's going to be staying? Or
if they don't
use them.
Going there. You can't go there. Especially with cats. Dogs can be a little bit harder. Not that we're going to go off on dogs, but dogs can be a little bit harder to let people tour because they can get bit. If it's a free run facility, dogs can jump on you and bite you. And so for me, I have to have a bunch of cameras because I can't let people just go walking in the back because we're a free run dog facility. But my cats are not running around jumping and scratching people. So there's no reason. Sometimes people will say, oh, my insurance won't let you back there. If somebody says that to you, just leave. It's not true. When you get insurance, it covers you for the whole facility. So that's just a lie. So
good.
Wow.
You should be able to see, your cat should be able to have things to jump on in those rooms. I see a lot of times where it's just like a single floor and the litter box is here and the cat food is right here and then their bed is right here. That's a no-no.
Like at the vet's offices, right? Like when you board at the vet clinic, it's just like, it's literally like your culture, right?
Yeah. I have a lot of amazing vets that I love, but one thing that really bothers me is I don't think any animal should be boarding in a vet hospital. I hate to say that because I know there's a lot of vets that do it, but that's where the sick animals are. Yeah. And I know it sounds to us like, oh, I want him there with the vet. Right. But the reality is that the vet is doing vet things, not taking care of boarding animals. And trust me, as vet tech for 12 years, those vets that I worked with, and I worked with several, never did anything with the dogs that were boarding or the cats. So you think you're doing it, but the worst place, in my opinion, to board a cat is at a vet hospital.
Wow, that is
fascinating.
And it's very important information.
I've actually thought we used to go to a vet that we no longer go to, but they have a boarding facility that they'll say, you can leave them for the weekend or whatever. And I always thought, well, as a last resort, if like the pet sitter, something happened and they couldn't come, that would be that. I would feel good about that. Wow.
Yeah. It's in our brain to feel good about it, but think about it in terms of this. Most vet hospitals, right, are working from like 8 to 5, maybe 8 to 6, and then they leave, and then they come back at 8 o'clock in the morning, and so the animals are left there all alone. So if there's barking dogs barking all night long, your cat is in a cage all night long listening to the barking. Yeah. But in like my facility, for example, and there's lots of them. Again, this is not a plug for my facility, but I
have never seen a facility like yours, though. Like I have never seen anything. It is like I almost want to take our cats there just because they would get like a retreat.
They can run around and play on the walls. My son actually built, it's all natural wood. That's all. He went out into the woods in Oregon, found the wood, he got a license, and then brought it back. It's all 100% untreated, amazing wood, because what people don't realize is that natural wood actually breaks down bacteria. And so I knew all these cats would be walking on it, and I wanted something that wasn't treated, that was much like outdoors, that they could touch, and that it would break down its own bacteria. That's why, here's a little tidbit, you should always use a wooden cutting board, not a plastic one, because it actually kills its own bacteria. Okay, so anyway, next non-trivia, whatever. But a lot of times in the vet hospitals, the vet goes home at 5 o'clock. And if something happens in the middle of the night, they're not back till maybe 8 o'clock in the morning. If you're staying have your animal in a boarding facility where something happens in the middle of the night, for example, if something happened in the middle of the night, for me, we have somebody there 24 hours a day. The emergency room clinic to me is less than a mile away. And so that cat is already being seen before the vet wakes up and gets back to her facility, if you know what I mean. Wow. So you really have to know, and there's no laws that say somebody has to be there overnight. And most people don't even ask that question. Like, when are you coming back? Who's going to be here in case there is a fire? How do you get the animals out if there is a fire? If they're in those cages, if they're in those little tiny box cages that most of us think of a cat boarding, their kennel isn't in there. So if there's a fire, what do you think they have to do? They have to run around getting kennels, get the cats in the kennels, and get the cats out. That's why the boarding facility that they're in, the actual area that they're in, should be able to actually have their kennel in there as well. So if there is an emergency, it's quick. It's the other reason why I like the top ones, because throw them in there, get them out quick. But these are things people don't, they don't think about.
Yeah.
So you gotta.
So, okay. So, when you say we were to bring our cats there just so that we could get rid of them for a weekend.
It sounds tempting. Right now.
It's very tempting.
Our girls are a handful.
So say we bring like sibling sets or something. Do you recommend that at your facility at least, or in any facility, would you recommend that they stay together? Or do you recommend that they stay if they're a bonded pair in any way? Or do you recommend that we still keep them separate when boarding?
Always together if they're bonded. There's to separate two cats that have bonded, or 4 cats, or whatever it is, I think it's devastating to do to them in that kind of environment. But you also have to make sure, especially kitties that can be, I'm looking at mine that has this problem, if they're aggressive over their food. So you want to be careful that the place that you're boarding has a place to take that cat to feed him so that they don't fight over their food. Or you may have that one cat who will gobble up all the food before the other one can even get to it. Right. We all have those. You want to make sure that because at home, right, we can put one in the bathroom and one in the kitchen. We've all done that. You guys are like, oh, I know all about feeding time, right?
Yes.
Some places wouldn't be able to do that. They would just throw the food in the same room and then go about their work and turn around and think both cats ate. And reality is one cat isn't eating because he's too slow, and Batman ate all his food. And I threw Batman under the bus there a little bit, but
yeah. You did. Yeah, you did.
So I think they should be together so long as the facility has a place to feed them separate if need be. And that is one of the biggest challenges I have, is the communication between the pet parent and my staff. Sometimes the stuff, it doesn't get relayed. People don't think about it. They don't relay this information to us. And we're trying to get it all figured out in 3 days that your cat is with us, or a week that your cat is with us. So you really need to sit with yourself and think about all of the things that will be different than in your home. Like, well, how are they going to feed my 2 cats together if they don't separate Batman from CJ? CJ is going to starve to death, right? You have to tell us that, because we don't always know. And that is probably the hardest thing, is getting people to, they omit so much information to us, and then we find out later.
That's a follow-up question to this, because I know when we leave, our pet sitter Jay makes literally a binder. What is the best thing for someone that needs to board their cat? What is the best way to relay that information?
I have like a picture of each cat with their name, their favorite foods, what they like to play with, when to go.
You should, what you should do is you should create that whole thing and sell it online. And then people can just fill in the blanks. If you're boarding your cat, here you go. here, Jay says this is what you should, be doing. Adrian says this is what you should be doing, and write it all down exactly how you guys have it and sell it. I'm telling you, that's what people need. But to answer your question, other than I would like to see that, both verbal and written. So when people come in with me, I love when people come in with all the written notes, but then I want to hear it verbally, because sometimes it gets lost in the translation. Like, did you wanted me to spin around on one foot twice, right? Before I feed your cat? Like, some of it gets lost. I need to kind of get that confirmation. So that's super important that it's both verbal and written. Medications. I always tell people medications, if you're giving your cats medications, be very specific. Don't, like this happens a lot in our boarding facility. Diabetes. We see a lot of cats with diabetes. And they come in and they tell me I'm supposed to give the cat 7 units of insulin. And then when I get it all opened up and they've left, I look and I'm like, the bottle says 6 units, but the owner told me 7 units. And then I'm like, oh shoot, whatever. I start calling the owner, except she's on a flight to Hawaii and the vet hospital has closed. And the problem is the vet upped the insulin and they've only been just doing it, but the bottle still says the old one. So you really want to make sure that these things match. You end up confusing and things can happen. And while we're speaking about diabetes, this is super important. When an animal's under stress, their need for insulin is less. So a lot of times we get cats that have diabetes and they're supposed to be getting 6 units or 5 units or whatever units they are. Talk to your veterinarian in your boarding facilities about reducing that insulin during that stressful period, because you could end up giving your cat too much insulin, because stress can have an effect on insulin. So yeah. There's a lot. There's people that just don't realize how much you need to think about and that's even for an animal that's staying at home and someone else is going to come feed the cat. If they're going to be stressed, their insulin levels a lot of times can be reduced just by like a unit, just to kind of help with that stress, how it does. But that's something you have to talk to your vet about. And you also have to make sure that the boarding facility that you're taking your cat is fully aware of how to handle an animal with diabetes. Don't just go, oh, okay, well, yeah, they said they could do it. Yeah. I'm comfortable doing it because of my 12 years in the vet world. Like I can do it, but you have to know that stuff.
Do you need to really look for somebody, in that vetting process of picking a boarding facility? Do you ask if anyone is a vet tech? Do you?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Questions. How long have you been doing this? What are you going to do in an event of an emergency? Do you have a relationship? Do you know where the vet hospital is? These are crazy questions, but do they know exactly where they're going in case of an emergency? Like how many people are there to help take care of the cat? So this is an interesting thing that happens sometimes where an animal has an emergency, but there's only one person available to be answering the phones. Well, guess what? Is she going to be able to leave? What's going to happen? So are they going to call me? I'm in Hawaii. I can't get there. So you really want to make sure there's enough people and enough staff in case there is an emergency. It happens. So,
it's so interesting because I remember, and totally like off, but not, when I was trying to find a facility for my grandmother, right? My grandmother. I was looking up like what I need to even know about facilities for my grandmother. And one of the things was you need to really ask and get proof that somebody is there all night. And I was like, of course somebody's going to be there all night. And they were like, you would be surprised, because the second question you need to ask is, if somebody's there all night, do you allow them to sleep? Because sometimes they have one person that's there, but they just go to sleep like everybody else. So they're not actually awake in case of an emergency. And thinking about like with our cat, we had to take our cat into the vet, and they said, we kind of want to keep him overnight. I can't remember which cat this was. It was our current vet. And I was like, is somebody going to be there overnight? And they were like, well, no, nobody's here all night long. And I was like, then I want to take them home because we're here all night long. Right. So, yeah. So I guess another question would be, is there going to be somebody there that's there all night?
So I think that cat boarding needs to evolve. a little bit better to where and this is where cat parents have to kind of take the reins and push for this, and also be willing to, I hate to say it, but pay the price for that, right? Because if you want someone to be there 24 hours a day and awake, you can't then also be expecting to pay $15 a night,
Right.
like the vet charges, because they just stick them in a kennel and they leave all night long and throw some food at them and some litter at them. So it's kind of this thing where we're seeing it happen within the cat boarding facility, where it's starting to evolve. We're starting to get out of those cages, as people like you guys are out there saying cats are important, damn it. Like, this is, they shouldn't just be shoved in cages. Like, we've had doggy daycares and fabulous boarding places for dogs for years now, but our cats are still being shoved in cages. And so then when people come and look at a facility like mine, they have a little bit of sticker shock, because I do have 24-hour care. And so they're like, what? The place down the street charges me $20 a night. I'm like, I'm sure they do. Like, I don't know what to say to that. Like, that's okay too, I guess. I don't know. And the majority of cats are going to be fine. So I don't want to put into this fear that, like, oh my God, nobody's there all night long. The majority of cats, the time when something happens, which I told you guys before we started this, I was back and forth about sharing this really tragic story that just happened to us. But this would be one of those cases where you want to make sure someone's there all the time, but it's a rare case. So I will just say, I will just tell you guys, I contacted Jay and Adrian about talking about this, because things need to be conveyed to us a little bit more if you're going to board your cat, so we know what's going on. But I just recently had a situation where a cat died while the woman was in Hawaii, and we found him laying in his litter box. And we know what that meant right off the bat. Like, he shouldn't be laying in his litter box. And so this was very early in the morning. And so we got him in right away. And ultimately the cat had to be put down, and he was in very heavy stage kidney failure that he'd probably had 4 months, as the mom says, and she just didn't know. And so it went so fast. I've never seen kidney failure go that fast. Like, it was just, there was no coming back from it. So she had to be in Hawaii, and I was the one that was with her cat when her cat was put to sleep. And it's just, I'm so thankful that her kitty was with me and not at home. Right? Those are the things where, like, if that cat would have been home for 2 days, she would have died by herself in her litter box, in pain, nobody hearing her crying. By the time we got her into the vet, she was crying. She was in a lot of pain. So we could have done a necropsy on her to find out if there was more going on. But those are the cases where I'm like, I want cats to be in a boarding facility like mine. How tragic to come home to that. And it can happen. But I also don't want to fear people into boarding. So if you have somebody who's coming to your house, like, people get these rover.coms, and I don't know if they do cats, but like, and those people come out, they throw some food, and they're gone in an hour. So is that better? I don't know. Like, is that better than a boarding facility that someone's actually there all day and keeping an eye on your cat? You have to weigh those two things.
Well, I guess the bigger issue too is just understanding where your cat is health-wise. I think, as it said, many people, I think it's 15% of us cat parents actually get our cats to the vet once a year just for an annual checkup. A situation like this, where I am sure if it was known that her cat was so ill, I doubt the trip would have even happened, that it would have been more about.
Absolutely wouldn't. She loved this cat so much. Yeah.
So I think that's the bigger thing. But also, and God knows that we understand sometimes things happen very suddenly, and there's no explanation, and there's no, that's just always going to be traumatic. But I do think this, whether we're talking about boarding, whether we're talking about pet sitters, it is something that we have to be proactively thinking about, because gone are the days of, even if you're still feeding only kibble, gone are the days of just leaving out a trough of kibble and being gone for 3 days and being like, well, it's fine. Jay and I did that when we first moved to Vegas 19 years ago. We would go camping overnight and just be like, bye, babies.
Yeah.
and come
And we
back the
fed
next day.
kibble and we'd leave
Right.
the toilets open. We gave them plenty of water and
I
plenty
did
of-
that too. I did it too. Like,
Right.
yeah. But one time
the
we
time.
came home, we were gone for a day and a half. We come home and Oliver Twist is in the closet. We didn't realize we locked him he got into the closet when we went in to get our coat out right before we left. He snuck in. We shut the door. We had already said bye. We left. If there was somebody there that evening to check on them then he would have been out of the closet. He was in that closet the whole day and a half, didn't pee, didn't poop.
Didn't
wow.
He
I
was
mean,
Crazy that he didn't pee and poop.
he scratched the carpet to try to get out. He
How
tried to dig himself
horrifying.
out.
Yeah.
But
horrifying.
yeah, I
But-
mean,
All to say, this is such a great conversation because I think so many of us cat parents maybe still think that that's an option. And I think knowing that even if you can't have a pet sitter come over or stay at your house or even come by to do a head count at least once a day to make sure that, you know, everyone's eating. And she's like,
Timing was perfect.
why didn't you?
because I thought it was going to be so funny. So I started smiling in advance because I was like, she's about to jump on
He's
you.
got to jump. This is gonna be good. This is gonna be perfect timing. Oh my
So
God.
for those listening, AJ
Anyway.
just got mauled by the cat.
I sure did. But I'm with you, Carrie. Like I really do not ever want to operate out of fear. I want to make the best decisions, proactively be thinking about what will I do if there's a family emergency and we've got to both be somewhere. What is our plan? What is our backup plan?
Yeah.
And sometimes this is where a facility like yours or being aware of a facility that we feel comfortable with near us is going to be absolute.
Which reminds me that we really need to come up with a plan if there were a family emergency.
You really should. That is one thing that people find themselves in, like at the last minute. Now, dog boarding facilities have a little bit more leeway to take in an extra dog. Like over Thanksgiving, for example, we had a really good client of ours had a death in the family.
Oh.
It's Thanksgiving weekend, and we are booked solid. But because they're dogs and they all get along, and it's kind of we are a free run facility, we were able to take her dog at the last minute. But with cats, you can't do that. So if you haven't established a relationship and you start calling around and they're like, we don't know who you are. We need this, we need that, we need this, and nothing's established. You could find yourself either they're booked, which is going to stink, or they're going to say, we don't have this, that, and the other thing. And you're in the middle of a family emergency and they want vaccine records and they want this and they want that and they want all this stuff. You're going to find yourself in a world of trouble and more stress on your cat. So you really do want to establish these relationships. And I always tell people, pick 2 places and just be prepared. You don't have to use them, but have them there, have them on backup, have them have whatever records they need, because things do happen. This literally just happened this Thanksgiving, and it happens. People have deaths in the family, and this is awesome. That would be my dog and cat fighting over something. I don't know. But you don't want to pick a boarding facility at the last minute that you know nothing about.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine you're stuck or whatever you call the closest one, and you drop them off, then you have to leave. And like you said, I don't want to operate under fear, but that's reality.
Right.
Emergencies happen. Be prepared. Find a place. And there's more and more of them are popping up. So that's the good thing. I don't want to say gone are the days, but they're in the background of boarding in those old, dingy, gray, sad, pound-like kennels.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you
floors.
ever seen, or do you know of, are there boarding facilities that do free run for cats? Like where you literally, it's just like a big catio and that's what they do?
Most of those are rescues. And so like there's one down in San Diego that Tim is dying to go to. I don't know. He's just like, when are we going? I'm like, oh my gosh. Those cats, I haven't seen any free run boarding facilities. I want to so bad. I cannot tell you how bad I want to do this. The problem is that there's a high probability of some injuries. Right. So if they're all rescue kitties, then I don't want to say that I don't care about the rescue kitties, but no one's going to sue me if a cat gets scratched.
Right.
But right now, I'm not going to take on that that risk or liability, but I wish that somebody would do it.
So you said in the video for yours, so in your facility, in your cat hotel, there are like every cat has their own room. It's so freaking cool. Like with the glass door and that like it's really cool. So you let the cats out, and then you have like outside of their rooms is the beautiful like cat fun, right?
Yeah.
So you let them each out individually unless they're a bonded pair or two that.
Yeah, well, I'll let 2 out at a time. Like they have to live together though. So we have 13 units, and the rooms themselves are big. Listen, I always tell, if you're going to board your cat, please make cats want to be up high. That's where they want to be. They don't want to be stuffed in a little box unless it's the box in your living room, and my cat loves that. But they don't want to feel that confined. So please make sure it's tiered. Like let the kitty climb up. Don't. That always makes me so sad. But not all our cats want to come out. So we have 13 units, and we open up somebody's door about every hour. It depends. Sometimes we have cats that just refuse to come out, and so we won't let them out. And then that means the other kitties get more time. So I can't tell you how long the cats are out. It really depends on who wants to be out, who doesn't want to be out. If a cat's coming to us for the first boarding night, it's their very first time boarding with us, we don't let them out for 24 hours because it's too much activity for them. It's too big. It's too scary. So we keep them in their rooms for 24 hours.
But they can see out.
They've got a full window. They can see everything. They know what's going on. Everything's good. What they can't see is their neighbor. So that's one of the things that is really bothersome to me. And I think you should look into. If a cat is boarding next to another cat and they can see each other, you're creating more stress. So it is fully the ceiling, the walls. The only thing they can see is in the front, and there's nothing on the wall back here that is another cat. So they can't see other cats. But they can come out when they're out, and that has the bridge, and they can climb up all over. And then at the end, there's actually a window down there, so they can get sunlight and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, I love it. I love Holly is here. Beautiful Holly. She said, Carrie, I don't think I could ever leave Cassie anywhere else, and the jungle is beautiful.
Oh, I love Cassie. Cassie's been coming since she's a baby. Cassie's actually really funny because I was just saying some cats don't want to come out, and then other cats won't let me put them back in, and Cassie is one of them. Once she's out, she's like, yep, I'm out. It's me. I mean, she will pay treats to the neighbors if they will let her stay out.
Give me your jungle time.
I'll give you one of my and Cassie eats such great food. I'll give you one of my liver treats if you just stay in your room so I can stay out a little longer. Yeah. She loves being out. But she's been coming there since she was a baby. So when Cassie boards with us, it's not boarding. It's just, I'm going to grandma's house.
Right.
It's just another home away from home, which is so important to create those environments for when you're going to be gone. So that's what's been so great about it. So, but there's things you need to know, and things change. Like, your cats bring on different things change, and they change so rapidly. Like in the case I told you with that kitty that passed away, Trouble, it happened so quick, and it was happening. She just didn't see it, but the stress brought it out. And that's what's so scary about boarding, is that when they're under stress, things start to come out, and we see. It's interesting. So with dogs, if dogs don't eat their first night of boarding, we don't care. We don't really pay much attention to it. They're nervous. They're not going to eat. The next morning, I don't really worry about it. But if they don't eat dinner that night, I'm pretty worried about it.
Right.
With cats, 3 days, I don't really worry about it, because it's super normal for cats to go up to 3 days without eating in a boarding facility. In a boarding thing. Got to pay really close attention. Yeah. So that you need to know that, and you need to know, because otherwise
I would be freaking out.
Yeah. So I always tell people, I need to know how picky of an eater is your cat. Like, is it normal for them not to eat that much? Because it's going to be really normal for them not to eat tonight, tomorrow night, maybe even the next day. So you got to have somebody that knows to pay attention to how much water they're drinking. You can't dehydrate a cat. So yeah, you may not be eating your food, which is the other thing I really wanted to make sure I said to you, your listeners. If your cat is eating kibble, I'm begging you, when you're boarding your cat, make sure it's canned food. Just do not even bring your kibble into the boarding facility, because they're going to drink less water if they're nervous, and they're going to eat less if they're nervous. So you have to keep them as hydrated as you can. So I would omit the kibble altogether in a boarding situation.
Do your
Wow.
clients bring, and is that normal? Because we've never boarded, so we don't know. But is it everybody brings the food themselves, like their food, or do you guys?
Such a good question. You want to keep as much normalcy as possible. So their own food and their own litter. So we provide it, but you would be surprised how many cats just Cassia can talk about this because she had this problem. She had to bring her own litter. So that she would stick with the same litter, because if we kept changing your litter, two things can happen. One, the cat won't use the litter box. Well, now we have a huge problem because he doesn't like that litter. That's not the litter he uses. So he doesn't use that litter. Well, now we have possible blockage, stones, all sorts of things can happen. But the other thing that can happen is that they get used to that litter. And then when you go home,
They won't
they
use.
don't want to use your litter. So they're like, I like that one better. I'm going to hold out. And since you don't have that litter that I like, I'm going to pee on your couch. So you really, if you can, bring your litter that your cat, or ask the facility. I have about 5 or 6 different types of litter, but I can't possibly keep up with all of them.
Right.
So if somebody comes to me and they're like, oh, he uses pine, or oh, he uses this, then I have quite a few different kinds of litters, but I can't possibly keep all of them. And of course, I like the natural litter. So there's that.
Okay. And I want to do, I know we're already running out of time, so I want to do a summary, because I saw that Cindy asked what things to look for. So I want to kind of go over some of the big things you mentioned. But what do you recommend? So say that we finally get our lives together and we make sure
Which will
that
never happen.
today. Definitely not today. But eventually we get our lives together and we do line up. We vet a couple different places. What are the kinds of things that cat parents need to prepare to provide, in addition, as obviously the food, the litter, that sort of thing, the carrier. What kind of things do we need to be thinking about, right? Like that
we need to ask
that we
questions.
need to, I mean, as far as like, what kind of records? Is it like all the records? All records.
All of your records, because if something happens and then I have to go, like, let's say I can't take him to your regular vet because it's the emergency room vet and we can't get a hold of you guys. And they're asking me, well, does he have a history of diabetes? And maybe he had a bout with it. I know that sounds crazy and you guys got it under control, but you didn't mention it to me. So I don't know. So here's the thing, the more information you can give me, the better. So sure, it may be overkill, but overkill is always going to be better. The more information I have about your cat, the better we're all going to be. We had a case a while back of a cat, and this is going to make it sound like no one would ever want to board their cat with me. But the cat was with us for a very long time. And then all of a sudden was having some crazy, weird, I never saw anything like that in my life. Rushed him to the emergency room. And it turns out this cat had this extremely rare condition that it was born with. And when she bought the kitty from the breeder told her, he'll mostly be fine, but one day this could happen. And it was crazy because when I got to the emergency room vet, I couldn't get a hold of the owner for a while. And then when I finally got a hold of the emergency room vet, I'm like, what is I've never seen anything like, what is that? And he goes, actually, I think it's this really rare case, which I know I should be able to tell you what it is, but I can't think of the name of it. And when I finally talked to the owner, she said, oh yeah, they said that might happen one day. So it had been years. So I don't blame her, but at the same time, and I don't know that it would have saved this cat's life because she opted to put him down because of this rare condition. But it sure would have helped get us there faster because, I mean, we were struggling. Like, what is wrong? Even the emergency room vet, he's asking me all these questions. Like, did he eat a toy? And I'm like, wouldn't have a chance to do it. I mean, it just took us down a path we didn't need to go down. So don't be afraid to give as much information. And anybody that is like, that's too much information, then I'd find another place. But yeah, every single medical thing you can think of that possibly would be important. I mean, you should have a file anyway. Just bring the file. Just go here. In case anything happens, here's my cat's file. I don't have to go through it. I don't have to know anything. And the chances are I'm not going to need it. But if I need it, it's going to be super helpful.
Yeah.
So that absolutely. Bring your cat's own food. I would prefer, of course, I like raw fed kitties. But if you can't do raw fed, at least put them on can in case they're not drinking as much water. The only real way for us, we actually have a few of our bowls have measurings in it, so we can keep an eye on if they are drinking. But the best way is for us to check the urine. So we're constantly checking. Make sure that your boarding facility is charting everything so they know cat ate, cat didn't eat. Make sure you see those charts. Like we write down whether your cat's peeing, pooping, with the amount of kidney failure and kidney infections and bladder problems that cat have. That's one of the most important things, that they're monitoring that your cats are peeing and pooping. A lot of places don't. They just clean the litter box and they don't write it down. So
I don't think I would know to even.
Wow.
I'm cat shit crazy. Like I love to keep an eye on our cats' eliminations.
But I wouldn't have thought to even
I wouldn't
ask
have
that
thought
question.
to ask that either. Like, do you keep track of when they pee and poop?
Yeah, they need to. I mean, if you're there for one day, okay, probably going to be fine. But if your cat is there for 2 weeks and they're not writing down whether that cat is peeing or pooping, that could be deathly. A cat, life threatening. If a cat is not peeing, they can die. It's not. It's a big deal. So you want to make sure they're monitoring and they're monitoring it properly and having all of that kind of stuff done. So.
Wow. Would you recommend, like, for those awesome proactive cat parents that we have, that we do just like a simple blood panel before boarding, so you have extra information or recent information? Like if this cat, she had no idea that he had kidney disease, but he had a blood panel before he came in, then at least you would know that there were elevated levels of kidney disease. Does that help?
Well, I think that cats should be monitored regularly no matter what.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say you have to do an extra one if you're already monitoring normally.
Mm-hmm.
But if if you've never boarded your cat and he's 15 years old, let's go get a blood panel to see what's going on, because those underlining things come out under stress. Yep. So if we know that ahead of time, then we're probably going to have to make, like, if something all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, your cat's kidney levels are off the charts, like boarding's not going to be an option for your cat. Mm-hmm. It's just not for the first time. If it's somewhere where she's always been, it's not going to be an option. The better option is going to be at home, and you're just going to have to maybe find somebody. So, and if you do have to board your kitty that has these conditions and there's just no other choice, please make sure it's boarded with somebody who understands. Like I told you, it's good that these things are starting to pop up and we're starting to see better places, but it's also bad that these things are popping up, because you get people who are like, I love cats, I'm going to open a boarding facility. I've never worked in a boarding facility. I've never worked at a vet hospital before. I just think they're pretty. And they open these boarding facilities and they think it's so easy. Oh, all I have to do is throw some food down and put some litter in a box. And that's why people don't want to pay, because they think it's so easy. My cat doesn't require as much work as a dog, so I shouldn't have to pay more than $20 a night. But there is a lot that is going on of monitoring and making sure under a stressful environment. It's different when a cat is stressed versus a cat at home. It's not as easy. We have to make sure that they're eating everything and that there's availability to if they don't eat this, like tuna is a great thing. I recommend bringing a can of tuna with your cats, because if a cat doesn't want to eat tuna, I get a little nervous, because even our sickest cats will at least sniff at the tuna. They may not eat it because they don't feel well, but I want to know if they're like totally turning their head up to tuna, I get nervous. So I always have some tuna around, because if I'm like, oh, is this kitty just being nervous because it's the first time boarding, or are you sick? And like a day and a half into it, I'll put the tuna out and then they gobble it up. I'm like, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah. So, I have little tricks and things that I can do. Your guys' B12 has saved me. By the way, I'm just going to tell you, I had a cat kind of abandoned with me. Her name is Rascal, and she's been with me for 1.5 years. And when she first came to me, it's a long story why she came to me. The whole story is a long story, but she came to me with the diagnosis of kidney failure or cancer. We think she has kidney failure or cancer. And she came to me with Royal Canin kidney diet. Okay. Well, about 6 months into the stay, her coat was off. I mean, she was just a mess. She was just like, she was starting to throw up. She wouldn't eat. Nothing. So the mom, who I was still in contact with, so I hate to say abandoned, the mom said, you know what, I'm just going to put her down because she's 16. And the vet said the kidney failure was going to take her life eventually. If it wasn't that, it was going to be cancer. And I said, just give me 1 week. Just give me 1 week of some holistic stuff. And if I can't pull her out of it, then I guess if you want to do that, you can do that. So this is for you guys. I took your Catalyst and your vitamin C and your B12 and some tuna and pulled this cat out of it. And it was 6 months later. She's now on a raw diet. But I started with tuna. Tuna is what helped pull her out. So kidney failure, it's very important. We know about phosphorus, right? And tuna is the lowest of all phosphorus. So of all meats, of all like beef and pork and chicken and all of those, tuna has a really low phosphorus to it. Mm-hmm. So I was like, and she would eat the tuna. Had to give her the B12 to get her to do it. But we pulled it out of her, pulled her out with those things. And 6 months later, and she is amazing. Her coat is beautiful. She's jumping around. She runs around. Her name's Rascal. She's awesome. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I was so happy because I have that stuff on my shelf there. So it was just there. So I'm like, I have all this access to stuff, which I think a boarding facility should have that, in the event of, can I try this tuna? And where are we? And then they should have a thermometer available, checking temperatures. Is how sick is when I call a client, I'm like, look, you took her temperature's normal. She has an appetite because she'll eat the tuna, but she's not eating her food. What do you want me to do? And sometimes they'll go, well, let's wait till tomorrow. And sometimes they'll say, oh my God, take her to the emergency room right now. It's not my decision to make. I just give them all of the information. So, but yeah, your products are so amazing. And I trust them so much that they were a big part of saving Rascal's life.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Rascal.
That is awesome. And is Rascal like with you? Like basically
it's such an interesting story. So, but her mom did call me and we thought that was it. Rascal's going to be my cat forever. I was like, that's it. I haven't heard from the mom in a really long time. Rascal's going to be ours. I don't care at this point, whatever. But she did just call a couple weeks ago and apparently Rascal's getting picked up on the 20th of December. So I'm hoping, she's kind of now my house cat and hangs out in the front. And we have another semi-abandoned cat. So by the way, don't abandon your cats at boarding facilities. Can I just put that plug out there? Like, please stop doing that. But so now Rascal and Rami are out all night long. They're the only cats I let out and they made friends. I let them make friends because they've both been there over a year. So I was like, they need a friend. And so Rami's young and Rascal's old. So I'm like, well, let's see how this works out. And so I just kind of threw them together and they hissed at each other. And now they're I don't want to call them friends yet. They tolerate each other. It's so cool. Yeah. But it was the B12, the tuna, the vitamin C, and the Catalyst, I swear, that saved that cat's life. And now she's on, for anybody who's dealing with cat kidney problems. I know this is taking off it. Now she's on Darwin's kidney diet and she's doing fabulous. She's doing fabulous. So
that's amazing. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Worth a reminder that, you are an incredible pet life coach.
Well, it was nice to save her life. Watching her coat come back was just crazy. And just really quick on your B12. And so you can have people, if your cats aren't eating, B12 is like the go-to. Like if they don't have an appetite, I swear sometimes just the B12 and there may be nothing wrong with them. And it's just, I learned that trick from all the kittens that I bottle feed. B12 is amazing. So yeah. And it's really safe.
Yeah.
You can give them so much of it. You don't have to really worry about overdoing it. Look at me. Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, the kennel, like I know you wanted to get these things. The kennel that you bring your cat in, please make sure it's top loaded, like in and out of the top, because that's the first thing, right? Shove it, just starting from at home, shoving them in there, chasing them around the house. I just told someone, I think it was today, I would rather your cat come to me in a pillowcase than in one of those kennels that I have. I know that's going back to old school, but old school, people used to bring their cats to the vet hospital in pillowcases. I kid you not.
Are you serious?
I'm 100% dead serious.
So it's not who let the cat out of the bag, it's who let the cat out of the pillowcase.
Yeah. And I'm not suggesting that is what we should do now, but truth be told, if you had somebody driving in your car, it's still less stressful to have your cat sit on your lap in a pillowcase. Obviously they need to breathe. And then when you get them inside really quick, I just open the pillowcase and they're out versus pulling and yanking out of these. I would say would ban those kennels. I hate them so much.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Well,
there's so many other options now too.
So many options. The box is a better option. They're $5 at PetSmart, I think, or $10 probably at this point. Those are better. So kennel that you bring them in, bring your own food, your own litter. Don't vaccinate within 2 weeks at all. Make sure there's no barking dogs. Make sure the place is air conditioned. Make sure that you have all of your pet's records in there for them. Make sure that you write everything down. Make sure you have good emergency room, emergency contacts that people can contact, that know. I've actually called emergency contacts and they're like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, well, you're their emergency contact. What do you mean you don't know? Right. Make sure that you communicate that with whoever your emergency contact is. I've only been in this situation twice, but they were awful situations where I am asked whether we had a dog collapse on our table. He had a heart attack on one of my grooming tables. And I was asked, we couldn't get a hold of the owner, whether they should do extreme measures to save the dog. I hated being in that situation. So please make sure that your boarding facilities know whether you want them to take those extreme measures or not, because you don't want to. For me, I always am that particular. I didn't have anything signed, and I was like, save the dog, and I thought, well, I'll just pay for it because I'm not gonna say no. So, But it could come down to a very huge financial burden on a pet owner if the groomer or the boarding facility or whoever it is decides to do that. It could become a legal problem. So you want to make sure those decisions are made ahead of time. If there's extreme measures that need to be taken, what do you want to do? Yes, no, what's the story? So, 4 hours on a flight to New York could be the difference between whether they do that or not. So keep that in mind. I think
just as facilities should ask for DNR signatures ahead of time. That's something that you do now.
That's what I'm doing now. That's what I'm saying. Like, you want to either put it in writing. If they don't have it, put it in writing and say, in the event that my animal is in a situation, I don't want you to resuscitate, or I want you to take every extreme measure possible until you can get a hold of me. Sometimes you can say, like, I had one case where I felt really comfortable with saying, I just want you to get her stable and I'm going to get a hold of the mom. And that's what we did. And so that worked. We didn't have to sit there and do all the x-rays yet and do all of the stuff yet. We just got her stable until we could get a hold of him. So you could say that too to your boarding facility. Look, do whatever it is to stabilize, but I don't want you to do stuff that I could wait, like an x-ray might be able to wait if it's just like maybe a leg or something like that. So, but be prepared and have a good emergency contact. Some places have like 3, like in my area, we have like 4 emergency clinics, and people are really using emergency clinics more now than ever before. And so I have a lot of people who are very passionate about some of these. I hate that one. I like that one. So if you have one that you prefer, let your boarding facility know, and maybe they can drive your cat to that one. So, but I think that kind of covers pretty much.
Wow, some big nuts and bolts.
This is a really good episode that I want to I'm going to save it so that I can go back and.
Because I do think it's all about the backup plan. Mr. Milligan is here. He said Rover does work with cats,
but it's up to the individuals under the Rover umbrella as to what animals they will care for.
Fed them well, scooped the litter, hung out with them varying amounts of time, but would rather have had them with someone that could be there full time. I mean, that's kind of where we've always landed too, right? We just would prefer to have someone come to the house and stay at the house and do all the stuff that we do. But because I honestly, something I know Cindy was asking earlier, this is something that just pops, just staying in my head, that you said one of the worst places we can board our cats is at our vet's office. And I am absolutely hands down for sure. Like, I would have, if we had last resort, that is exactly where I would have gone. Not thinking about proactively vetting other facilities to see if it's, and knowing that vet is a fear-free facility. So they have different entrances for dogs and cats, but the desk is, we're sitting there with a dog right in front of us, right? You're listening to the dogs barking. I mean, thinking about putting our cats in that kind of situation, it's already stressful for them, right? But a prolonged period of time when they're listening to one of their natural predators
and smelling it.
And smelling it.
They can. I don't care. They can smell it. Yes. They know that when you drive up, probably in the parking lot, all those dogs that have peed in the parking lot, they can smell it. So it's. I know. I know that this is not going to be accessible to everybody. Like every town doesn't have a cats only boarding facility.
Right.
I'm just saying, do the best you can at vetting some places and calling and trying to figure out, maybe it comes down to how separated are they? Like maybe it's just the lobby, and maybe when you get in the back, they're so separated. And maybe the vet hospital did a really good job of insulating, and the cats really can't hear the dogs once they get in there. I don't know. I'm just saying it's a really important question, because listening to a dog barking all night long or all day long I can't even imagine that stress of I mean, think about it. Like you said, it's a natural predator for them.
Right.
And they're like, I can't even get out of this cage. Like I can't run. I can't climb up a tree. I am just sitting here waiting to this animal to come get me. It's scary.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think is such an important question, just as a reminder for anyone who's just joining us, is to make sure that you ask the facility if there is someone there 24 hours. And if in the case of the emergency, what their protocols are, who goes, who stays, all of that. I think that's stuff that I've never thought about.
Never thought about.
Yeah. For us, what happens is, and this is completely, I think, a viable thing, especially I can't hire 20 people, right, to care for 13 cats to be around the clock. So one of the things we do, if there is an emergency, my night shift will instantly take that cat to the emergency room. She leaves the other cats, and everybody knows that. There is a time where there may be, it's a mile away, it's less than a mile. She brings the cat to the facility and then calls me. My phone is right next to, and I am about 1.5 miles from that facility. So then she goes back and I go to the facility. That is how we operate that situation.
Wow.
So you do need to know that. Like, I don't like, what if that person leaves? Now cats, they're separate. So it's a little bit different, but I have dogs and cats I have to worry about. So yeah, you got to ask these questions because you want to know. And hopefully they're truthful to you. A lot of times people will say things like, oh, well, yeah, there's somebody kind of here at night. Or I've heard this one. This is my favorite one. Well, no, but I have a camera. And so I have it on at my house. And I'm like,
while you're sleeping?
That doesn't
sleeping. Exactly. Like, come on. And what good is that going to do me? Right. Like, so you have a camera and you can watch it and really, you're not watching that all night long. You're sleeping. So you got to be, but sometimes people accept that as the answer. Oh, okay. Well, they have a camera but think it through. Like that's not acceptable. It's just, so.
Wow. Carrie.
All right. Any closing thoughts? Anything that we didn't mention? I know we're keeping you over time. I'm sorry.
You guys keep me all night long.
Oh, hey, girl.
I think that I almost don't want to say this because it's just coming off as something very sensitive for me. But when things do happen, don't blame your boarding facilities. Yeah. That's probably one of the hardest things. Like, people, we hear this a lot about like veterinarians that are committing suicide and they're getting out of it. Like they don't want to be part of taking care of people's animals. And a big reason for that is the blame that happens. So I got really lucky with that cat that just passed away from kidney failure. I told you guys, I'll tell the rest of you guys, she just dropped off a thank you card to me because when we found out the cat was going to have to get put to sleep and she made that decision, I went back to the animal hospital to be with her cat because I was the only person that cat knew. He didn't know that doctor. And I held his paw while he went through it. But I got to tell you, the whole time I kept thinking, I hope I'm not going to get blamed somehow for this. And I know this isn't really what people probably want to hear, but when things do go wrong, just be kind because it's not always someone's fault. And if we keep blaming people we keep blaming the vets, we keep blaming the boarding facilities, we keep blaming the groomers, we keep blaming the dog walker, we keep blaming the trainer, we keep blaming the people who are making products to help our pets, everybody's going to leave. So just, I don't know, take some responsibility for the care of your pets.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't give the boarding facility enough information, you know, that he was allergic to tuna, maybe, I don't know. And then they try to give your cat tuna because they're worried that maybe he doesn't have an appetite. And before they panic you, they want to see, like, then people get mad. So you got to take some responsibility for the care of your pets.
Yeah.
I mean, that actually is a really incredible proactive message. I think we this year learned how quickly things can change. When our Pooh Bear literally dropped dead on us 20 minutes after dinner, after a beautiful day, things do happen. And I feel like the comfort that we have in with that situation, which God forbid, we were actually supposed to be out of town that weekend.
Yeah.
God forbid that would have happened, because I literally said, I think that would have damaged my relationship
with our pet sitter.
because
Absolutely.
Right. Because what if, but the comfort in it is that we knew we were being proactive with Pooh Bear. We knew he was we were very, we had been to the
He
vet.
was the healthiest he'd ever been.
He was the healthiest he had ever been. Right. So there are things that happen. And I think that is, in those painful moments when something does happen, we, the pet parent, we can find a lot of peace in knowing that we have fully vetted these facilities. You've just given us so much information, what to ask for, what's your experience, do you know how to handle cats, are you comfortable giving insulin, medications, do you chart their pees, poops, how much they're drinking, what they're eating, those things, right? If you think of boarding facility, you're just like, okay, see you in a week. No, like these are the kinds of things that we as pet parents can be proactive about, bringing their files so you have all of the information while we're gone. I think it is actually, I know that, it's a little bit like cringy, like don't blame the blame game, right? But you're right. We have such a shortage in vets. We have a shortage of just compassion fatigue in general, I think, when these people that really, really, really do care have to deal with some of us that are maybe not being our best selves and may not have been holding up our end of the bargain. So that's actually a really good proactive message.
Yeah, sorry I even kind of brought that up, but I'm watching a lot of people that I've known over the, I'm getting older, so I've been in it a long time. But I'm seeing a lot of people going, I want out. I don't want to be blamed anymore for this. And I don't want to be blamed for that. And I don't, so I think just as a society, we need to start owning responsibility for certain things.
Yeah.
But if we keep doing this, we aren't going to have any vets. We aren't going to have any groomers. We're just not going to have it. So, but that's why I talk about communication being so important, because if you forget to tell your boarding facility something and then something goes wrong, then you forgot you didn't tell them. It just becomes this whole chaotic thing. Because I would love nothing more than, well, first off, I would love for you guys to open a boarding facility like mine in Vegas. Like, I think that's your next venture. Let me know if you want me to help you build it out.
You would have to.
Yeah. Work for us because we're not vet techs.
Yeah.
You guys, you can learn what you need to do. But I would love to see these in every city, because I don't like to see cats boarded in cold kennels. But I fear that people, they're not going to, because people play the blame game a lot in this industry, and it's really awful. So just own the responsibility, but also vet, because there's, I'll say it, there's some shitty people out there running these places. You have to vet them. I've seen, okay, that's what I'll tell you. Guess what? Nothing has ever happened one time in the history of me owning that cat hotel. Nobody's come out to check it. I have a kennel license. Yeah, I have a kennel license. No one, not one time has the city come out to check my facility to see if it's safe, nothing. But I have a kennel license. So you have to know that. Like, sometimes people think, oh, it's a business. I have a business license and I have a kennel license. Nobody has ever come out to look at that cat hotel. Not one time.
Wow.
That's a shame, because it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Well, I don't care. What I'm mostly concerned about is, like, you're just letting these places open up. You're collecting money. You're telling the community that they have a kennel license, and somehow that makes them a viable business, that my animal should be safe there. Yet all they want to know is how many cats I'm boarding, not where I'm boarding them. They have rules, right? Like, when I signed the kennel license, it has rules of, like, that's, and you'd be surprised how sad it is. Like, how big the facility has to be, like the housing part of your cat. Mm-hmm. What a joke that is. Like, I don't even remember, but I just remember thinking, well, that's like as big as the box that my toaster came in. Like, that's ridiculous. So they have these rules that you're supposed to follow, but they don't check them, like, that I'm doing them. They just go, okay. And then you sign it, and then you send off your money, and then you're done. So you can't rely on a business license or a kennel license to protect your animal. You can't. Right. Maybe other cities are different, but certainly here in Orange County, not one time has anyone asked to come in and look at my facility.
Wow.
So you can't rely on that. You have to, and vet hospitals are even different, because vet hospitals don't even have to have that. So vets are under a different whole thing. So, like, these vet hospitals that have boarding facilities, they don't even have the same laws. So they are totally vetted differently. They're totally, laws are different. So
Great reminder too. We talk about a lot how important it is to actually make a relationship with your veterinarian. So you can be teammates. This is exactly like you said earlier. Be proactive about it. Make relationships with two facilities. So if you're in a emergency situation, you already know the human who is going to be. You already have a relationship with that facility, so you know how they run. You know how they do things. You know what the protocols are. It's not just cross your fingers and take off.
Yeah, no. There's a lot. So I could talk about this forever because it's, you have that, you guys mentioned the fear-free facilities. When I retire, which is getting closer and closer.
Don't you dare.
I actually want to start a organization that actually goes out and rates these places because some of them are horrific in what they do and how they do it. So that's something that I've been wanting to do for a while that I might do. So I don't know. Find something to do with my life when I retire. Yeah.
We should do a whole new podcast on fear-free facilities because we've had some interesting.
They're also like there's a certain certification, but they don't follow. There's nothing fear-free about our last place.
Okay, let me just, since you opened the cat out of the bag, I don't believe in the fear-free crap at all. Like, I don't follow that theory. I don't think that people should pick a facility based on that sticker in the front window.
Right.
Most of the time they're telling cat people to give gabapentin in the car for the check-in process. And so, I'm not a fan of fear-free. They called me and asked me if I wanted my facility to get fear-free certified. And I said, well, since you can't make an animal fear-free, I'm going to go with no. I'm sure there's some good they're doing. I don't want to take all of it away, but I just think that
everything starts with a good idea.
Yeah, I think it started with a good idea. Yeah. But I think it ended there. I think drugging animals and I'll tell you what, I had a vet friend of mine go to one of the seminars for that because she had to do her certs, finish all that stuff. And she called me up and she says, they literally told me that it would be not unusual to give a patient that I'm examining for being sick 15 to 20 treats while I'm doing the exam. And she goes, what do you think about that? I'm like, well, if you're examining him, you don't know what's wrong with him. So should you be shoving food down his throat? And she's like, no, exactly my point. Like, you can't always make an animal fear-free. You sometimes have to be cautious and you have to take I do everything I can to make it as less stressful. But even in my facility, I can't do that. And I'm certainly not going to drug your cat to do it. I don't think that's fair. No. The side effects of the drug. So, but anyway, okay. Yeah. So we could do a whole podcast.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay. So Carrie Hyde is coming back for the Fear-Free podcast.
Great. Yeah. I'm going to have to, I'll come back and then you guys will all have to bail me out of jail because my big mouth will get me in trouble again.
Your big mouth.
We love your big
so
mouth.
Much information.
Yes.
I just love, it's like there's so many different facets to being a pet parent, so many different. And I just always find that you have so much information and many things that I've never even thought about in this, boarding whole thing, or even what you just shared about fear-free facilities. Cause that's like, I'm looking into this. And then we've had two very not fear-free situations that have just kind of left us a little shell-shocked. And I think, it's even more so about how comfortable are people with cats in general, because maybe they just see dogs. They don't know how to handle cats, and how they handle them is not
fear-free.
That's a whole.
It's not fear-free. And it actually, like, literally we could do a podcast on this, but that's what happens is they get this idea that there is such a thing as fear-free. And when that doesn't happen, they don't have the rest of the tools. They're stuck going, well, I gave him the treats you told me to give him. Now what?
Right.
That didn't work. Well, it didn't work because that's not how you do it.
Right.
That's not how you do it. Sometimes you just have to take the animal into a different room and calm the whole environment down. Sometimes you just have to have the guts to say to one of the parents who's freaking out, can you just step out for a minute? Like, you have to have those skills to be able to do that because energy transfers, right? So I'm not going to say you two did this, but if you have two people and they're fighting in the room while, that's going on, the person who's taking care of that cat has to be able to like say, hey, can I just take this cat in the back for a minute, or find a way to communicate. But when you're told that there's such a thing as fear-free, if you just follow all of these steps, it'll never work. It'll never work.
And sometimes it's not even the pet that you're trying to make fear-free. Sometimes it's the human that you've literally seen that it's the human that is afraid of the cat.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So much goes into it. Totally
different podcast.
I know. But I seriously mm-hmm.
We'll talk. Stick around. We'll talk about it for a second off camera. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode of Back in the Closet with the two crazy cat ladies and beautiful Carrie Hyde. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you guys. Thank you for being willing to talk about it, because I think it kind of gets to the wayside about boarding. Yeah. Like, people just don't think it's a big deal. Oh, whatever, you just board your cat. But there is a lot to think about.
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing it up to us, because we honestly, I'm sure with all of our followers, I'm sure there's people that board their cats, and we've just never done it. So we've never really thought about talking about it as a topic. And I'm so glad we did, because now we actually are going to, especially now, we're going to go vet some places for if, there was an emergency type situation. I know we wouldn't be able to feel as comfortable with our cats anywhere unless it was with you. But in case of an emergency, County, if there was an emergency,
that's why you just have to open your own boarding facility.
Stop. Stop right there.
Yeah, maybe.
We'll talk offline.
Yeah.
For a second.
All right. Thank you guys
for joining
Bye, everybody. Thank you,
everybody, for joining.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.